the paranormal doesn't really work without believers, right? But what about skeptics? Are they more than just paranormal party poopers? Can they be useful to the paranormal? Are they just as essential to the paranormal as believers are? October 13th is International Skeptics Day. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into skeptics versus believers. Ready? Okay, so welcome back. Or if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Courtney Mroch, and I'm the host and guide of Haunt Jaunts, and this is my Quartz Corner vlog. So today, for International Skeptics Day, I thought we'd talk a little bit about, or I'd talk, and if you want to comment, which I hope you will, we'll talk about this paranormal believers versus skeptics. Because skeptics get a bad rap, don't they? A lot of believers will just say, "Oh, you guys, you don't believe, you're party poopers, you're closed-minded." But are we? Because whoop, I'm giving it away. I was going to ask, which camp are you in? Are you a believer or are you a skeptic? Which that is today's question. Are you a believer or a skeptic? Which side do you identify most with? I identify most with skeptics. I didn't used to. When I first started Haunt Jaunts, I was pretty much just a believer. If you told me that's an orb, if you told me this globe behind me is a haunted orb, I would have believed you. Oh, it's haunted. Okay. I wouldn't have questioned why, what makes it haunted. I didn't have a lot of those tools yet, but as I've been doing Haunt Jaunts now for 12 something years, I've definitely developed more into a skeptic, and I've questioned, well, why would you think that? And also I've learned that, a lot of things that people call orbs are dust and light and bugs. I mean, just they're anomalies in a way, but they're explainable anomalies. So it's definitely made me more aware. And I've also seen, unfortunately, a lot of hoaxers. And that's made me extremely suspicious. And now I question everything. So yeah, so I've definitely gone more the way of the skeptical side. Now I try not to be a party pooper, but being a skeptic, that kind of comes with the territory, right? Because I'm going to question what somebody's saying, and people do not like, it's the other thing I've learned. People don't like to be questioned. They do not want to have to answer. Just believe what I'm telling you and don't question it. That's hard. That's really hard. Well, that's hard for me to do. I mean, some people are perfectly fine with you tell them something and they'll believe. I'm not one of those folks. But then I feel bad because the skeptics, get a bad rap but to be fair, some skeptics, and I have been guilty of this, give believers a hard time for believing without, verifiable data or even any kind of reliable good data. They just make something up. Their shoe got misplaced and it's a demon. So, I mean, there's a lot of things it goes both ways. I mean, you have to be pretty egregiously violating the believer thing for me to say. And when I say that, I mean, you have to be trying to make people believe that, something just unbelievable for me to call out a believer. I'm just not going to go around. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And I believe believers believe. So there's that. I don't really want to rain on anybody's parade. But if you're going to bring evidence to me and say this is a ghost when obviously it's a person in a sheet, yeah, I'm not going to not going to fall on that. And I think some believers would be in that camp too. And that's what I think, that there's much more crossover than people give credit for. I just think there is. I think that it's not that people are, one thing or another thing. We love to pigeonhole, right? We love to be your, black, white, red, green, and put everything in a nice, tidy box. But life, to borrow a Facebook, I don't know, I'm not on Facebook that much anymore, but is this still a status where it's complicated? Because life is complicated. It's messy. It's not always black and white. It's often gray. But I want to read you something, because I want you to see how you feel about this comment. Okay, so I have this book from Simple Abundance. I don't try to get it in there. And I don't know how to say the author's last name. I always want to say Sarah Van Brethneck, but I know that's not the right way to pronounce her last name, but I don't recall how it was actually pronounced. It's not how I think it should be at all. But she wrote in the October 6th essay, or was it the October 6th? No, it was the October 5th one. She wrote this to end that essay with, and let me know how you feel about it. And I might get my answer about which camp you're in this episode. Okay. Skeptics make the best seekers. Ooh, that's loaded, right? So believers, that's not going to make believers happy, because believers often say skeptics are closed-minded. They don't believe. They're paranormal party poopers. They're closing everything down. They closing everything down by shutting down any arguments that believers have about why something is real. Well, I agree with that. Sometimes we do that. But I also agree that sometimes believers believe without any solid proof or really good evidence, right? And that happens too. They'll say that a bug is an orb, for instance. Okay. And orbs are a perfect example, because there are a lot of people who think everything's an orb, and other people that are like, well, did you check? Did you know your environment? Did you know, were you aware? Were there bugs? Is it gnat season if you were outside or something? Did you kick up dust? How was the cleanliness of the place you were investigating? What was the light situation? Do you always pick up lights like this? Is it how your lens of your camera is made? There's a lot of things that people want to know, that the answers to that. Skeptics have more questions like that, I think, than believers, which does not mean that believers are bad. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that one is smarter than the other. I actually feel that both sides should go together. But I get a little sad that skeptics are often discounted, or I feel they are. Maybe believers feel that they're discounted, and maybe both sides need to listen to each other more. I don't know. Weigh in with your thoughts on that too. How do you feel? Does the paranormal need skeptics? I would argue yes, because without them, then people are calling everything haunted and not getting to the root of what's going on. Is there, is there something physical about the building, like the construction materials? Is it by power wires that, it's proven that EMFs definitely can enhance and affect how people view things. And that doesn't mean that it's creating paranormal activity. It means it's affecting people's brains and how they perceive reality. So we can affect, there's drugs. A lot of people are on drugs, and that can affect your perceptions, as we all know, of reality. So you have to get to the bottom of a lot of things that I don't think people get to the bottom of a lot of times. So I think you do need skeptics as much as believers. And I think you need them to try to work together and guide each other more, which is hard. It's hard to get two sides of opposite sides of anything, right, to come together. But if you really want to make progress, you have to find the common ground. Sorry, I keep jiggling my my desk. I don't mean to, but there's always common ground, isn't there? Right. So we could find the common ground and work from there and not try to prove. Like, I feel that a lot of times believers, I hear it a lot, like, I want to prove to you that there's ghosts. Why do you need to prove to me? What do you care what I think? I mean, let me think what I want to think. I'm not trying to prove to you that ghosts don't exist. I'm trying to prove to myself what's happening. And that's the thing, that, if it turns out that it's a ghost, oh my God, how exciting. But is it something else? And if it's not a ghost and it's not, something just regular that we, can, like a dripping faucet that turns on, it's not some kind of weird, screw loose or something. I don't know anything about plumbing, but what if it's not just a ghost, but you're finding something bigger, other dimension, something more. So I think together, putting, both halves of these sides together can create a fuller picture and experience. So I just am asking for people to kind of give skeptics more of a chance. Yes, I understand why you think we're the paranormal party poopers, but we have some valid points sometimes also. And I also want to read something. I think his name, it's by Brian Dunning from Skeptoid, who he's a pretty popular guy. A lot of people know him. But he had an article about who is closed-minded, the skeptic or the believer. And, I don't know if believers make better seekers or skeptics do, but I do think skeptics question a little bit more, and that leads them to other avenues. I wouldn't say better avenues. I would just say additional avenues, whereas sometimes believers go, okay, this is part of my faith. I believe in demons. That's a demon. End of story, without questioning, is that really a demon? Could it be something else or nothing at all? We don't know, but that's for another thing. But let me read you something that he wrote, because I thought this was extremely well worded and really kind of gets to the gist of, we're all equally, we may tend to be more of a believer or more of a skeptic, but we also have things that we are, vice versa about when it comes to that. So we have both sides of this in us. Let me read this. So what is the real difference between skeptics and believers? It's disingenuous to claim that either is more closed-minded than the other. Everyone sits somewhere along that spectrum. Nobody is immune. It's disingenuous to say that either is more of a stubborn believer than the other, or that either tends to support their preconceived notions more than the other. Probably all of us are more guilty of these than we like to admit, especially in less formal environments. The real difference, I'm guilty. The real difference between skeptics and believers is that skeptics have a useful foundation of scientific knowledge and an aptitude for following the scientific method. These tools allow us to distinguish poor quality evidence from good quality evidence. And importantly, they help restrain us from drawing poorly supported conclusions from the evidence that we do accept, no matter how strongly we want those conclusions to be justified. And then he goes on to advise, so don't focus on buzzword labels like closed-minded or true believer. You can be both of those things and still be able to properly analyze evidence and draw a supported conclusion. You can also be guilty of neither fault and yet be unable to distinguish a well-supported conclusion from mountains of poor evidence. So he just says, focus on the method behind the conclusion, which a lot of people skip the whole method part. They They just jump right to the conclusion. That's where I have some issues. But anyway, so weigh in with your thoughts. Do you think that, um, you know, skeptics, how do you feel about skeptics? Are you a skeptic or are you a believer? And have you ever considered that skeptics offer some value, even though, yeah, sometimes that's the Velma, right? There you've got the Scooby and the Shaggy who believe everything's a ghost, and the Velma who's like, hey, wait a second, Jinkies, let's check out the facts, guys. But everybody contributes, right? Something to the whole pot. Or do you think no, just believers should be in the paranormal? I don't know. But do you question why are skeptics in the paranormal at all then? It's not to prove believers wrong. They, like for me, I'm also trying to find answers to experiences and to what's beyond and what's happening, because I see something is happening. I've had experiences. I don't, I guess you call them paranormal because I don't have any other term for them at this time. But at the same time, I don't actually know what it was that was happening. And sometimes it was when I was dreaming, or was it? I mean, I felt that I was awake, but was I actually dreaming? I don't know. So I search. That's what I feel. I feel that's what that quote that I read you, I feel skeptics really search to get the answers, and believers just accept the answers without seeking. But I don't know. Am I right? Am I wrong? You tell me, what's your views on all of that? And let me know, how do you identify, as a skeptic or as a believer? Neither is right or wrong, right? Everybody, both sides are right and both sides are wrong. It's always that way, right? We have the good in us, we have the bad in us. It's two sides of the same coin. So anyways, I really appreciate you listening to me ramble. One time I was accused of being verbose, and I am. If I get going and I'm not focused, I'll talk. So thank you. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. That helps with this whole YouTube algorithm stuff. And comments, love it. I'll leave a question in there, which is what I asked, I believe, at the start of this. I don't even remember because I've talked so long. But I just want to know, which camp are you in, believer or skeptic? Let me know. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until our paths cross again, ciao for now.